welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley and this is Faithful Records. Okay, so as you can tell from the title of this video is all about shows and answering your questions that you had about rat shows. Now I'm going to put a disclaimer at the beginning of this video. I myself personally I'm not an expert in rat shows. I've only gone to my first rat shows this year. I've only been to, I want to say 3 or 4 in person and 1 online, so I'm not an expert on this. By no means am I sort of like the person who runs it. I'm just sharing my experience as a newcomer into the rat fancy, what it's like going to shows, to hopefully encourage more people to come to shows and let everyone know what rat shows are all about, because they're not something that is widely known outside of the fancy, even with pet owners. So that's what this video is about. It's about rat shows, what they're for, why people go to them, why I think everyone should go to them, all that sort of stuff. These questions might seem a bit all over the place. I couldn't figure out the best way to order them, so I'm just going to answer them as I have them. These were submitted on my Instagram page, so if you ever want to be involved in a video like this where I'm taking answers or submissions or anything like that, do follow me on my Instagram. It's just Faithful Retters, like over here. So the first question is, what are they like? Are they pretty casual? Are there rules to follow? So I don't think I can answer what are they like just now. I'll just let you watch the rest of the video. But are they pretty casual? Are there rules to follow? So yes, there are rules to follow. There's rules about how to enter a rat, which rats can be entered. There's rules about disqualification, things like that. But there's not very many rules sort of for people whilst you are at a show, other than leave the rats alone, don't distract the judges, and be a sensible human being. Some shows will allow you to bring shoulder rats, some shows won't. That's up to the discretion of the rat club that is involved. There are a couple of rat clubs in the UK. So there's the NFRS, which is the National Fancy Rat Society, that covers the whole of UK and Ireland. Then there's the MRC, which is the Midlands Rat Club. They have slightly different rules to the NFRS when it comes to how often you can show rats and things. Then you have the YRC, which is the Yorkshire Rat Club. Then there's NERS, which is NERS, which is the North of England Rat Club, and there is a South of England Rice? That's rat and mice together, Rat and Mouse Club. So there's lots of different clubs depending on where you are in the country, depending on all that sort of stuff. So from my experience, I'm going to be talking mostly about NFRS shows, but take that with a grain of salt if you're thinking about going to shows of different clubs. However, most of the clubs will have similar sort of requirements, and the answers will be similar for most of these things. So then the next question says, how long do the shows usually last? Also love your channel, thank you very much. Shows usually last around 8-ish hours, so you arrive around 10 AM, start to set up, make sure your rats are in their tanks with the right numbers and labels on, and then you enter them, and judging starts around 11, and then judging usually finishes around 5:30-ish, and then afterwards you clean up the hall all together in a big group, which makes it go really fast to clean up, and then there's awards at the end. And I would say probably around 8 to 9 hours, depending on how early judging starts, because at some venues only allow people to get in at a certain time, which means that we start a bit later on. So it depends, usually around 8 hours. It is quite a long day. I think it's more long for you than it is for the rats, because they spend most of their time sleeping, as they normally do. But for people, yeah, it can be a long day, and if you're not a huge fan of socialising, it can also be a long day in that regard. Plus, on top of that, you've got the travel time. A lot of people will drive, for most shows, at least 2 hours to get there, because obviously there's not going to be a show always local to you, because there's shows all around the country, and it's really up to you decide how far you're willing to travel. But a lot of people do travel quite far for shows. Is it packed with people or pretty bare? What kind of building are they in? So it really depends. Most shows, I would say, are in like village hall, church hall type places. A room that's kind of large that will fit a decent amount of people and a decent amount of tables. Some of the other shows, like the Bradford Small Pet Show, which has a lot more fancies there. So it's not just the rat fancy. You have hamsters and mice and guinea pigs and rabbits and gerbils, I think, maybe. So at that sort of show, it is in a bigger venue. That's at a racecourse venue. And is it packed with people or pretty bare? It really depends which show you're at and what sort of level show it is. So if it's a 1-star or a 2-star show, this usually has a smaller entry, which means there's a less amount of people there. And a 3-star show, like the Bradford show, a championship show, there are more people there because there are more entrants and things like that. But in my experience, they're not super busy. There are quite a lot of people. There's enough people to keep you busy for those 8 hours. However, it's not something that's with thousands and thousands of people. I mean, you wouldn't be able to fit that many people in a village hall type of situation. Then the next question is, when it's a rat show, are there only rats or do other animals come for fun like mice and stuff? So, as I mentioned before, the Bradford Small Pet Show has lots of different animals at it, and they have their own sort of judging going on. Then I know at MRC shows, they have a section for small furries where you can bring other sorts of small furries, and they have their own sort of smaller competition at the show just for fun, because obviously the judges are more trained in rats than other small furries. I went to an MRC show in October, and they had a one entrant, a guinea pig that came, and obviously because there was only one, they won the rosette, but it was fine and it was really fun, and there was a guinea pig. Next question, how do you enter rats into a show? So it depends, I think, on the different rat clubs. With the NFRS and the NERS, there's a certain email address for each show, and then you just email your entries to the show sec, the person who's running that show. In Scotland, I think they have a website that you can submit your entries through. As I go on through these questions, I'll explain more about which sort of classes and what type of entries you can do. But that's how most people, how most NFRS shows work. I'm not 100% sure about the other rat clubs, but they're probably something similar, either an online form or an email sort of thing that you just email the show sec or fill in the form with your entrance. Next question, where do you get show cages from? So, if it's your first time going and you're not 100% sure if this is going to be for you, you can hire tanks at most of the NFRS shows, depending on availability, obviously. And I've shown them in videos. I'll put a picture on the screen to show what a show tank looks like. It's just a small, sort of carrier-sized tank with a mesh lid that keeps the rats safe from each other, keeps them calm, and it's just basically like being in a carrier all day. It's not bad for them or anything like that. I have some people commenting on some of my pictures from shows being like, oh my god, why are they in such small cages? It's like a carrier. It's just for the day, and it's not like a permanent sort of home. If someone is keeping a rat in that sort of small environment, yes, but for a show tank it's fine. So usually you can get them from shows. So you can either buy or hire them depending on how serious you are about it. Usually when I go to a show, I will buy one extra tank and then hire the remainder number that I have. I currently own 3 show tanks now. I think a good number to own is 4, but that's how many show tanks that I have. Also depends if you're a breeder or just a pet home like me. If you're a breeder, you're going to need more show tanks. So yeah, you get them from shows, or if you want to, you can buy them yourself. They just are more expensive if you buy them yourself and you don't have the ready-made mesh lid, because they are supposed to be fish tanks. I'm not sure what fish is acceptable to live in something that size, but it's sort of like a 30 by 15 centimeter tank with a mesh lid, but you buy the tanks with a plastic lid, and the mesh lid is made by somebody in the NFRS, and obviously because they bulk buy the tanks, that's why it makes it cheaper. If you buy it from them, it's £14.50, whereas if you buy just the tank by itself, it's about, I'd say it's £17 or £18. In European countries it is cheaper. What do you need to prep before a show? This is a good question. In my experience, there's a couple of things to do a couple of days before and the night before and then the morning of. So you need to make sure that your rat's nails are cut so they're not scratching up the judges, because it's one thing us getting scratched by our small number of rats, but think about judges who see between 50 to 100 rats in one day. If every single rat has sharp nails, that's going to hurt. So that's one thing. I usually will like to do nails 2 days before the show to give them time to sort of file themselves down and not have the sharp edges as well. So it's cutting nails, it's cleaning tails. If your rat isn't always on top of cleaning their tail for them with some warm water and a soft bristled toothbrush down their tail is a really good thing to do, because you don't want them to be grubby when they go to a show. You obviously want them to look presentable, so if they have a dirty tail, that is another thing to do. And then obviously you want to be prepping the substrate that you're going to put in the tank, their water sources. Most people will use apple or carrot or cucumber, and bedding if it's in the colder months, so things like straw or the white paper bedding or newspaper bedding, something like that to keep them warm in the tank if they need it. Although lots of shows aren't super cold even in the winter. The one I went to this weekend was roasting, so we didn't really need bedding, but it's nice for them to have if they want it. What do you need to prep before the show? You need to make sure your entries are in, you need to make sure you know where you're going and you have your travel there, I guess. Also bring extra money, because quite often there are stalls at shows of people selling rat related items like hammocks and treats and things like that. Yeah, that's the basics on what you need to prep. You need to make sure that you have like a little bit of food for them, things like that. What you're going to carry them to the show in. Are you going to carry them in tanks? Are you going to carry them in a carrier like I do? It really depends on you and sort of that situation, but that's the basics of what you need to prep before you go to a show. Also, if a rat that you've entered has come up with an injury or an illness, don't take them to the show, obviously. That's not fair on them, and they will also get disqualified anyway if a judge sees that they are too unwell or they have lice or whatever. Obviously don't bring them to a show, because you don't want that to, first of all, stress them out more if they're feeling unwell, but also if it's things like lice, you don't want that to spread to other rats. And do you need to be a member of the NFRS to enter? No, you don't. However, I do think it's helpful, because you get to see on the forum all the information regarding that show, people asking questions, you can ask for lifts, that sort of thing. So whilst you don't have to be an NFRS member to go to a show, I do find it to be helpful, because you get more information about it on the forums that are members only. I would also say that different clubs have different rules about this. I know that MRC, you can enter 2 shows before you have to become a member to enter, so sort of like a trial period. But for the NFRS, you don't have to be a member, but I would recommend being a member. I think it might be good to talk a bit about what people do while the rats are judged. So this isn't really a question, but it is a good talking point. So usually people will either go for a day out, or they'll have a chat with people. Sometimes breeders will bring kittens to shows, or other rats, meet other people's rats they brought with them, like shoulder rats, do a little bit of shopping, have a nap. It's really up to you what you want to do. You can stay at the venue, but you don't have to. Lots of people will bring their own entertainment, like portable video games or books, or other sort of like little hobbies like that. But most people just chat to each other, and they mingle around and chat to everyone else and meet each other's rats and look at their rats and things like that. It's a really nice day out if you are a rat owner and you don't know many other rat owners. And I know as a rat owner that a lot of people have issues with friends and family because people don't like rats. So it's nice to go to a room full of people who love rats that you can talk about rats with, and learn a lot from at a show from more experienced people, people with different experiences. I just really enjoy like chatting to people at shows. The last show that I was just at this weekend, I actually stewarded for the first time, which was amazing because I learned a lot about how the shows work internally, and I also learned a lot about what makes a good rat, and how to look out for that in my own rats, and how to keep an eye on good condition in my own rats, which is really, really useful information. But yeah, I just love going to shows, so I really recommend it if you can. I'd love to attend one, but I have super social anxiety, and new things are super scary. How did you find your first rat show? Was it intimidating or super friendly? I think that most people there are understanding that the first show you go to is very nerve-wracking. The first show that I went to, I didn't bring any rats with me. I just went and hung out, chatted to people, watched how it worked. I wasn't sort of super invested or worried about caring for my own rats. I was just there to observe and to chat to people, and I found that really helpful, and it helped. Okay. It was really helpful for my anxiety to go there and know what to expect before I brought my own rats with me. I think it also helped me that I had a lift off somebody to get to that show who was also going to the show, and having that time to chat to them in the car and have somebody who I knew that I had sort of like support, I guess, that was really helpful. And I mean, it can be overwhelming and a bit intimidating to go there, especially if you don't know very many people. So I do suggest maybe bringing a friend with you or a family member, or if you have a friend who's already been to shows, going with them for the first time. I do really recommend maybe not even staying the whole day at a show, maybe going there, popping in for a few hours and then going home, just to sort of get used to what it's like before you enter yourself, or you go for the whole day, things like that. Most people are very understanding of things like that, and that's not something that you'd be judged for or talked down about, you know? Okay, so the next question says, I've never heard about rat shows. Can you do a general run through of what happens? So I think I've done this a little bit in this video, but I'll do it specifically here. You show up, you get your rats ready in the tanks, you put them on the table. The judges and the steward then judge the entire day. They judge each individual variety, each individual section, and then each individual class. And then whilst this is happening, you can leave or you can stay, have a chat, eat some food, maybe buy some rat-inspired things. All this is going on. And then, sort of around 5:30ish, everybody helps to clean up the hall so that it takes maybe 10-15 minutes with everybody helping rather than hours and hours if one person were to do it. And then after the hall is tidy and everyone has put all of their things in their car, hello, little man. And then after that, the awards are given out and rosettes and things like that. It's very simple. As somebody who just enters as a steward, it's quite complicated. Found that out this weekend, but I really enjoyed it and I learned so much when I did it. But yeah, that's the general sort of like rundown of what happens. Are shows stressful to rats? Now this really depends on the rat themselves. Certain rats will be stressed out by being in a new environment, by being around so many unknown rats, by being handled by strangers. Some rats are stressed out about that, and it's best usually to not enter these rats into shows. However, there are a lot of rats, especially ones with excellent temperaments that have been bred by ethical breeders. They don't care, and a lot of them really enjoy it. I know my Cade really enjoys it. He really loves attention. My Akatosh really enjoys it. He also really loves the attention. Hester, for example, he didn't not enjoy it, but he also didn't really enjoy it. He was sort of in the middle about it. But it really does depend on the temperament of the rat and what they're used to. So yeah, sometimes yes, sometimes no. I think it's a really good idea to think carefully about which rats you are entering. If you've got, for example, a nervous rat that has a biting problem, probably not best to enter them. But if you've worked with them and they're over that, then that's fine. It really just depends on the rat, and if a rat is clearly stressed out by being in the tank or being at the show, then usually they will get withdrawn. Yeah, it's not super stressful for most rats. So stewarding is one of the roles to help out judging, and stewarding is moving the tanks around, moving the rats around so that the judge has the right rat at the right time to judge in the right category. That's the basis. The simple explanation of stewarding. The actual process of moving all the rats around is a little bit more complicated, but that's what stewarding is, and I really enjoyed doing it, and I will be doing it again in the future. I just need to decompress a little bit, and it was really helpful to have people who'd done it before helping me out, because I know if I was on my own that would have been terrible. Hi, man. Hi, little man. You got a friend down there digging that hole with you? Are you? Yeah. Hello. Okay, so that is all of my questions. I thought I'd add a little bit more information that wasn't covered by those questions. So at rat shows there are usually two categories. One is varieties and one is pets. Pets is more focused on judging the temperament of the rat, how friendly, how ratty they are personality-wise, and this is a little bit more subjective because some judges prefer different sort of personality traits in rats than others, and in pets they can also award things that are called specials, which are just a special, a rosette award for a rat that stuck out for something. So in the past I've won 3 specials. One of them was for Cade at the first show that I entered rats at, and this was it was called In Your Face, and that's because he wouldn't leave the judge's face alone. Then in my online show that I went to in December for MRC, which is the Midlands Rat Club, Akatosh got a special award called Kamikaze Rat because I sat here in front of my cage. I was facing in this direction, and I was just sort of talking about Akatosh as a rat. Obviously on an online show it's judged slightly differently, and he jumped from my shoulder to the cage, splatted on the cage and fell down, and it was hilarious. The judge really thought it was funny. It was funny, so I'm sad I didn't actually see it because obviously I had my back to it. And then at the last show that I was at, Akatosh won another special that was called Muscle Man, and that's pretty much, you know, for being a big muscly man, which he is. And then the other class is varieties, and this is much more, I don't want to say it's more formal, but it's a bit more objective, and it's not really subjective. In this class, the judge is looking for rats that are built as good rats. Do they have the right shaped head? Do they have the right shaped eyes? Have they good muscle tone? Have they got a good body condition to them? Are their tails the right length, the right shape? Are their ears the right shape, especially for Dumbos? Obviously ears are very important, and the shape of ears are very important for Dumbos. So in varieties it's a lot more about the physicality of the rat. So the first thing is sort of about their body type. Is the conformation right? Do they have the right size head? Things like that. Which is where rat shows differ, I think, a lot from dog shows. That rat shows are very, 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 very focused on keeping rats rat-shaped and not breeding things that are harmful to rats, like short faces, misshapen heads, things like that. Then the secondary part to that is also judging the rat's variety. Are they living up? Are they meeting up to the variety standard that has been written? So for Siamese, do they have a good nose point? Do they have a good rump point? Do they have the good shading across the back? Is the colour over the rat even? For varieties that have ticking, like Agouti, is the ticking even? Is it, you know, super dark? Whatever. There's sort of different criteria for different varieties. Are they meeting those? And that is what a varieties judge is looking for. And they will favour a well-built rat over a rat with a perfect sort of coat colouring. Because the most important thing with rats is making sure they are still ratty and their bodies still have the ability to do all the rat things. Like Dig! Hello! So yeah, that's pretty much everything about shows. I hoped it wasn't too all over the place. I hoped you did learn quite a lot about rat shows, and I hope I've convinced you to at least try one in your area. I'm only speaking from my personal experience and my experience coming into the rat fancy in the past year or so. I have really enjoyed shows a lot. I've learned a lot about rat keeping and rats, and I've met a lot of wonderful people. And even if you aren't sort of wanting to breed rats or have rats as a hobby of yours, I do think the occasional show can be helpful, can be fun, and can be just, you know, a great time. Period. Okay, I'm gonna go because Period is making a mess. But yeah, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope it helped. If you do have any more questions, I'll try to answer them in the comments. Subscribe to stick around. We're almost at 250 subscribers, which is really exciting. And yeah, that's it from me and my messy boys. See you next time. Bye.